We're visiting with a retired brigadier general in the South Carolina Air National Guard. Who is it? You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio in Florence. We're focused on the life of the Honorable Phil Leventis, a state senator serving Sumter and Lee counties for the last 23 years. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Incredible opportunity to highlight so many aspects of your life, to focus on, obviously, your career as a general in the South Carolina Air National Guard, or so many years in the Air National Guard, as well as the business ventures and your service in the State Senate. In particular, to highlight, looking forward tomorrow to highlighting the Blue Granite recognition.
My wife and I have been blessed over the years. We've had a wonderful time in South Carolina, my home.
Yes, you have, Phil. You and Evie both. Where did you spend your childhood years, Phil? Born
and raised in Columbia. Actually, I was born at the Columbia Army Air Base, last child born there before they closed the hospital in 1945. So as we'll talk about aviation, and that's always been my passion. And grew up in Columbia, graduated from A.C. Flora High School in 1964.
Mm-hmm. What was your first job as a youngster, Phil?
12 years old. My older brother was working. I wanted to work. I went to a local Zesto there near Forest Drive and asked the guy who was running the place if I could have a job, and he said I could. My father owned the place, by the way. And I worked there during the summers for the next couple of years, gained a few pounds, and really had fun.
That must have been exciting. At age 12?
Yes, 40 cents an hour. Just delighted to have the job.
That's something you'd never forget. Your father was awarded, I'm glad you mentioned your father, the Purple Heart as a result of his service in the infantry during World War II. He was named the Outstanding Disabled Veteran in South Carolina. Did that factor into your life and your interest in the Air National Guard?
Certainly it did. My mother and father are both first-generation children of Greek immigrants. All my grandparents were born in Greece and Asia Minor. Mm-hmm. My father was the first one in his family to graduate college. That was 1941, and it was a citadel. Mm-hmm. So he got a commission in the Army and served and tragically lost his leg in combat in Europe. Came home and went to work and enjoyed what he was doing, was very successful. In 1959, he was selected as the outstanding disabled veteran in the state and was always involved in civic matters. Matter of fact, he was one of the very first Republicans elected to the Richland County Council in 1972, served for 4 years.
Is that right? And that was his first foray into...
First and only foray. Mm-hmm. When he finished his first term, he asked my mother if he should run as a Republican or as a Democrat. When he ran again, because he had friends on both sides, she said, you run again, you run as a bachelor. How about that? And so he did not run again.
Absolutely.
But he enjoyed his time in public life. And he and my grandparents always, I guess, instilled myself and my brothers with the notion that service was important and a responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very definitely. I remember, obviously, when you kicked off your campaign for Lieutenant Governor, the aspect of service throughout your entire life, and it's been recognized in so many aspects, truly recognized at an early age.
Well, it's been delightful to be able to be involved. That's what I like about South Carolina, what I like about Sumter, where my adopted home. I've been able to be involved for a number of years, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. When you made your decision to continue your service in the South Carolina Air National Guard, you were working with your father as general manager, am I correct, of the family's business?
Right. After I finished the University of Virginia and got married in 1969, I went into the Air Force. My wife was in the Army. And when I finished my tour in the Air Force in 1974, just had a grand opportunity to work in the family business. I don't think anybody could have a better opportunity than that. It's a small business in Sumter, and so I began to work there and to fly in the Air National Guard. Flying is what I enjoy doing.
Truly a passion. And your family supported that decision?
They did. I did not realize the degree to which they did until much, much later. But I've always been away from my business more than I really should have been, to be in the Air National Guard, to be in the State Senate. But my father and my wife and my mother have always supported that, and allowed me that time off.
And so what was your dad's reaction to you winning a political office?
Of course, he was very, very proud. He had served as a Republican. I ran and won as a Democrat and still am a member of the Democratic Party. It allows me independence that I like and I believe is necessary for public service. But he was always very, very supportive. At that time in 1980, I then had two part-time jobs, National Guard and the legislature, and Dad supported that until he passed away in 1988.
Mm-hmm. So what year did you and Evie meet?
We met in 1967 at the University of Virginia. She had already graduated from college, Longwood, and joined the Army to pay for her nursing school. Mm-hmm. When she finished nursing school in 1968, she went on active duty and eventually served in Vietnam for about 6 months. When we got married, she was a captain in the Army. I was a second lieutenant in the Air Force, and we were rich. We had no children, no responsibilities, and 2 incomes. And it was an exciting time.
Everything changed, obviously. But children came, and
she stayed on active duty until we had our first child in 1972, and everything changed. We have 4 children.
Where were you stationed when Evie completed her tour of duty?
I was in South Georgia. She was, at that time, stationed in Philadelphia. Tragically, her brother was killed in an automobile accident. She came home on an emergency leave, and I met her in the Atlanta airport. I'll always remember it. She was dressed in her little military uniform, little khakis, and so it was quite a reunion after 6 months apart. We were engaged at the time.
And you all returned to South Carolina in what year?
1974. She left active duty in 72 when we had our first child. I left active duty in 74 and came straight into the Air National Guard.
And Phil, how many children do you and Evie have?
We have 4, 3 boys and a girl.
Is that right?
They've all finished college now. The oldest at the University of Florida, College of Charleston, University of Virginia, and our daughter just finished Clemson. We have a son who finished Washington and Lee Law School. We're proud of our children. They've done a lot. We are excited about their plans and dreams now. They've been to a semester at American University, at London School of Economics. They've been all over the place.
Education's been a real central part of their lives, and that must have been, you were very focused on their education at an early age. Were you all living in Sumter when you all came back in 74?
We came back to Sumter in 74. We put our children in the public schools there. It was a conscious choice. We knew that there were wonderful private schools and still are, but we wanted our children to see the society, and we knew, and I think everybody understands, that you have to follow your children through whatever path you choose, private school, public school, homeschooling, parochial school, whatever. So we did. We followed them all the way through the schools. They got good educations, and they've done well in college.
And you were able to follow when you were first elected in 1980. Were you able to get active on the educational side of education throughout the public schools?
Certainly. Education is our top priority in South Carolina, as defined by how much we spend on education. That defines our policy. I tell folks that the state of South Carolina has no foreign policy or defense policy. So our policy is determined by what we spend, and half of our budget goes to K through college education.
That's right. Half the budget goes to K through college.
Right.
I was not aware it was that dramatic. That's amazing.
Oh, it is. Absolutely.
What do you hope your children have learned from that focus on education, Phil?
Well, they've learned a lot. I never realized it, but my wife and I would talk about issues around the table. They would listen, and they have become very sensitive to political issues and community issues, and they understand that nothing happens in the community without actual involvement of someone. And I think they're more sophisticated than they might otherwise have been if they didn't have this insight. So I think they've learned a lot about service. The same thing that my father and mother and grandfather and grandmother on both sides taught me.
So I think I guess it was early last year when you announced your intention to run for lieutenant governor. And I think you returned to your Columbia elementary school to kick off the campaign. What was that like?
I sure did. It was delightful. The whole campaign was worthwhile, very positive, very constructive. I tell folks I came in second, and you don't get a silver medal in politics for coming in second. But that's okay. The people I met, you and others, during the campaign made it all worthwhile, and the places I went that I would never otherwise have gone, and insight that I gathered into South Carolina, was just remarkable. Even after having been in public office for over 20 years, I gained additional insight. I really, really enjoyed that. I started at my grammar school because it represented the transition in my life. My grammar school was built in 1949. It had 12 classrooms, standalone grammar school, and that would have been enough for approximately 250, 300 students. Today, grammar schools sometimes exceed 1,000, 1,400. That school was outmoded quickly, and but it shows how much of a transition there's been in the last 50-plus years since I was there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's so fascinating to think about serving two counties principally, and your district serves exclusively Sumter and Lee, or do you spill into other counties?
Sumter and Lee primarily. Of course, you know, and I think your viewers know that Shaw Air Force Base is located in Sumter. Lee County is primarily a rural county with I-20 running through it, a lot of farming, a little bit of industry. It's a very diverse district, and I enjoy that a great deal. The great thing about being in any public office is what you learn. The people you meet, the things you get to experience, both good and bad, just enhance your understanding. And it's really a privilege and a delight to do.
The aspect of going from serving two counties to the aspect of potentially serving 46 counties in the state and being active. Now, you really serve all 46 counties, even your position representing two counties. I mean, your position throughout the state Senate, as with all senators.
As reflected in my email traffic, I would say yes. And that, too, is delightful. It's amazing. I have 45 colleagues, and it's amazing the diversity in that group. And that is delightful. One of my most enjoyable aspects of service is that I am one of the few, for a long time, the only male member of the Women's Caucus in the legislature. And I joined that because certainly half of my constituents are female, and those issues matter. And it turns out they're not really gender issues. They really are community issues that only women are willing to tackle. And it's a great place to be. But again, the diversity of young women, old women. We have grandmothers and women who have never had children. We have Republicans and Democrats and blacks and whites. And it's really a great place to be. It certainly reflects the diversity of South Carolina.
So when you think about the travels on the campaign trail, are there a handful of stories that really stick out? Of course, meeting so many fascinating folks throughout the state, but are there some stories that really stand out in your mind of some of the amazing characters in the low country and the upstate? There's just so many, I guess. It's
certainly. So the one that I relate quite often is that as a result of having run, I know where Grassy Pond is. Most people don't. It's a delightful little community just north of Gaffney in Cherokee County. And we went to the volunteer fire station there and had a little community meeting where the candidates spoke. And it's just wonderful to have been there.
Bill, following your graduation from the University of Virginia, you were commissioned in the Air Force as a second lieutenant, you said. What do you think inspired you to become a pilot?
I had enjoyed airplanes from a very, very young age. Learned to fly at 19 at the same place where I was born, the Columbia Airport, and flew for several years before I finished college, and had the opportunity to fly the jets, and I said, well, I cannot miss that. I started pilot training the week the astronauts first landed on the moon, Neil Armstrong, and so this was a remarkable time. I really was pumped up. But over the next 30 years, I flew almost 4,000 hours in Air Force jets, including old ones like the F-102 and brand new ones like the F-16, which I picked up a brand new one day out in Fort Worth, Texas. So it was really a wonderful ride that I had in the Air Force, plus the professionalism of the enlisted and men and women and the officers of the Air Force and the Air National Guard. It was really delightful.
You still fly, Phil?
Oh, yes. I'll fly until I can't fly anymore. I have an airplane I have with a partnership with several others, and that's what I enjoy doing. That's my pastime. I don't play golf, and so my pastime is flying.
As you think back to your first time in the air, in the first series of times, let's say the first 100 hours, and you think back to the last time you may have flown last week or yesterday, recently, when you think about it, what are some of the changes that have happened in the air? Surely there have been some effects
Oh, absolutely. The first time I got terribly airsick and the last time I didn't. That's one thing. But more importantly than that, the technology really has exploded. Unfortunately, the design of most airplanes hasn't changed a whole lot. Within the last few years, we have some. But the technology has changed, and now we have a global positioning system, GPS. Mm-hmm. And whereas we were committed to maps and stopwatches years ago, now with the GPS, I can tell you where on the airport I am, much less where I have to go to get to my next stop. And it'll tell me how long it'll take and how much fuel it'll take. And it's really remarkable, and I expect that only to continue with artificial visibility provided to pilots and better weather reporting. Technology is what has exploded and made flying so much safer and so much easier.
So many folks haven't even been in a plane. There's a lot of folks who haven't flown since 9/11 who are fearful at some level of commercial flights. There are folks like yourself who've piloted planes, and Ed Young, a guest later this week. It's amazing to think about, what is it, the thrill? Is it, there's an incredible thrill? What is it that encourages you to get back up as opposed to staying in the car and cruising from here to...
Well, flying is what I've always enjoyed. There's an artistry to it, although it's in motion, so you can't capture it. It's like a babbling brook. If you're doing acrobatics and you pull the nose of the airplane up and you're pointing straight up, and then the earth comes into view over the top of your head looking backwards, those things are poetry in motion, and I love them and continue to do them as long as I can. But certainly just the view from on high gives you a different perspective. I've been high enough before over Florence to see all of South Carolina, the North Carolina mountains, Wilmington and Savannah, 45,000 feet. That's unique and something that I love.
So when you completed your active service with the Air Force, you immediately began another career with the South Carolina Air National Guard. As you said, a part-time career, albeit very active in your life. With your business interests and a young family, you think about so many motivations in your life. But what do you think motivated you to continue that military service?
Well, of course, I'm very proud of my military service, my wife's military service, my father's, and certainly service in the military is just a great thing to do. But obviously the flying certainly kept me there. And the people of the South Carolina Air National Guard. We have some extraordinary people, technicians and others that just do a wonderful job. I have always had extraordinary pride in being a part of that unit, which has a very, very proud history.
And almost 30 years in service with the South Carolina Air National Guard.
Correct.
That's amazing. For viewers who may not understand how the Air National Guard works, how does it support our military efforts?
We have in South Carolina Air National Guard about 1,200 members. About 300 are full-time, go there 5 days a week, plus they go to drill. The rest are part-timers and spend anywhere from 2 days a month to some 10, 15 days a month, depending on their employment status, maintaining their military skills and upgrading those skills. As a pilot, I used to go at least once a week and 1 week in a month, a couple of weeks a year, and then occasionally 5, 6 weeks off for additional training. We're then available at the call of the President and the National Command Authority to serve in crisis, as we did in Desert Storm, as my unit did just recently in the Iraq War. So it's a great bargain, because as a part-time person, I made only a fifth of what or a fourth of what a full-time officer would make, but I was ready to go even as we entered the Persian Gulf War on a short notice. So it's a great bargain for our country, and it keeps us close to the skills that we enjoy exercising.
I'm glad you mentioned the Persian Gulf War. In '91, I think you made the decision to head out. You volunteered for active duty and then flew combat missions over Iraq. What was your family's response to that decision to fly?
It was certainly difficult for my family, but my wife supported me tremendously. My oldest child was in high school then, just about to graduate, and the youngest about 10. So it was with great trepidation that I left and went there, but with a full understanding it was my responsibility, and I needed to go. Trepidation, by the way, is the word we use as a euphemism for fear, because you have to have a fear of the unknown Our last major experience had been Vietnam. My wife had been there. We had lost tremendous resources and life in Vietnam. We didn't know what to expect, but it was a responsibility that I accepted gladly. I had 22 years total service. As we approached the Gulf War, could have retired, but that would not have been meeting my responsibility and obligation that I'd had for those 22 years to go when we were really needed.
Right. That's a great commitment. I think I remember a story either you or EV telling, Phil, about EV watching CNN and seeing the war in the process of beginning.
Yeah. Let me make
story,
it clear,
please?
that was before the Fox network existed. But she was watching CNN, and I had given her a number. I'd only been gone about 4 days, to call me in case of emergency. Well, the war kicked off at about 6 o'clock local here, 7 o'clock, and it was 4:30, 5 o'clock local in Riyadh when our phone rang. And someone answered the phone. She said she wanted to speak with me. The officer there said, doggone it, lady, don't you know it's 4 in the morning? She said, but did you know they were bombing the devil out of Baghdad? And the guy said, no. He said, turn on CNN. And he called me, and then naturally we had to go to work. The secret of when the war would kick off had been kept very well and appropriately, even in the military channels. And since I had just gotten there, it was not important for me to be in on that secret. So General Horner later told my wife, as she told him that story, that was great because he knew that lives depended on that secret having been kept.
Right.
And it was kept. General Horner was a friend of ours, a commander, the architect of the air war, and we saw him numerous times after the war, and that was one story that we shared.
Easy let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
What a great story.
Yeah.
What a great story. Phil, you've been so active in several business ventures. You think about your work with the community and church organizations, continuing your service in the military, and obviously there was some motivation back in '80 to throw your hat into the ring and service, one you'd gotten from your father at a very early age. What was it in particular that motivated you? Was it just that, or just to step in?
I had been very active in our community from the time I got there in 1974. But I remember back even in the late 60s, I was writing letters to members of Congress with my thoughts and ideas. And so when an opportunity presented itself in 1980, I took it, and I'm glad that I did. I ran against an incumbent, beat him, and then began serving. He ran against me in 1984, and I beat him again. Now we're very good friends, by the way. He's an attorney in Sumter practices, and he supported me when I ran for lieutenant governor, which I appreciated a great deal. And it's just been a grand opportunity for me to try to reflect what people in Sumter want and need and think, and for my family to be involved. But it was just an extension of an interest I'd had for a long time.
Do you remember your first day in the state senate?
I do, and I say this, it's not a joke at all. People say, well, the first thing I'll do is I'll learn where the bathrooms are. Well, the State House, of course, has been there since the 1860s, and when it was built, and even through the 1920s and 30s, there was no need for a ladies' restroom in the State Senate. So when I first got there, as I headed for the restroom, I almost went in the wrong door because they had separated the big door that used to lead to the men's restroom, and the right was for the ladies and the left was for the men.
Wow.
So I had an awful lot to learn. I had never been in the State Senate until I had been elected, and so I've learned from that day to this, and that's been the pleasure of being there.
Yeah. So feeling, aside from the confusion of finding the bathroom, I mean, the feelings were pretty, truly amazing.
Oh, yes. And serving with people like Senator Gressett. In 1980, Senator Gressett was in his early 80s and had been a member of the state legislature since my mother was 6 years old. In and out he had been since 1927. And so serving with those gentlemen and listening to them, and with other folks like Ida Quincy Newman, the first black elected to the state senate this century, was just a pleasure and a privilege. Whether you agree with people that you serve with, you learn from them, and you learn important things from them, and that I've enjoyed.
We've just got a couple of minutes, Bill. When you think about your now 23 years of service in the State Senate, can you tell us which accomplishments you think have given you the greatest sense of satisfaction or of which you're most proud?
There are numerous policy issues that I could talk about, the environment, the financial issues, and those are important. But the thing that comes to mind immediately is helping individual folks with our state government, with the federal government as I can, telling folks yes when I can, explaining to them why I have to tell them no if I must, so they'll get a final answer. One of the frustrations people have in dealing with government is no final answer. Mm-hmm. And I work hard at that, and I've got a good staff that supports me in that. Mm-hmm. So going to the local grocery store and having somebody say thank you for help that I may have given them, that's very gratifying.
Absolutely. Golly, that must be. It
certainly is.
That must be. So how about some of the projects that are high on your list of priorities for the next session?
Well, I continue to work on environmental issues and financial policy issues. As I said, financial policy determines the direction our state goes in. No matter what we say about an issue. If we don't fund it, we don't support it. If we do fund it, we do support it. Mm-hmm. So I work on those all the time. I believe firmly that we need to not worry so much about tax rates as we do wealth creation, getting our citizens on a better financial footing. And if it takes a tax increase, well thought out, to invest in roads or in Medicaid, which really helps all of us, that's the important thing to do. And then we have to protect and enhance our environment. And more people are joining me in that concern very, very broadly. We have issues in Darlington County. I know there's issues in southern North Carolina that I have been involved in, once having spoken to the Leadership 100 in North Carolina about some of those issues. Mm-hmm. Those are things that top my agenda.
Mm-hmm. Focus on the environment's high. Focus on service is very high. And focus on his family is probably the highest, and his God. We're visiting with Senator Phil Leventis. Hopefully you can tune in tomorrow to learn a little more about the Blue Granite recognition as well as family businesses. Phil, thanks so much.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it greatly.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank the Honorable Phil Leventis for visiting with us today. Tune in tomorrow to learn about the Blue Granite recognition.